Welcome back, everybody, to another fantastic edition of Battle of the Ballads, this time 2011 edition. And I'm really excited to see where things go. I was looking at my list for this year, and then I did my 2012 next year too, just to kind of get ahead of the game. My lists are getting significantly smaller. However, I'm enjoying some of the songs that make the list much more than I had in years past, which I didn't expect. And we had some responses. I know that Facebook is moving to their new sort of platform. So I think a lot of people's posts are getting missed and the algorithms are getting a bit messed up, even with the 6-word comments. So bear with us on those. I have tried to tag the people that normally comment. So we did have some folks share theirs, and Gregory got I believe 1 or 2 as well this time around.
One person with a couple different. So
yeah. And so Paul Brenner jumped in. He started us off with The Year of Gautier. He said, who could escape that noise? And then he said he thinks his pick would have to be Midnight City by M83. Jessica Sniateki, who just donated a bunch of coats to our P4P drive or not coats, blankets that we're doing to get some blankets out to folks who need them. She gave us some tracks with Someone Like You, Rolling in the Deep from Adele, whose concert this week was absolutely stunning that she did. Born This Way from Lady Gaga, Just a Kiss from Lady A, and You and Tequila from Kenny Chesney with Grace Potter. My guy Dan Askey gave us the Lumberjack song from Monty Python. I don't care what year it came out. That's timeless. Justin Zane gave us Young the Giant Cough Syrup, 21 Pilots House of Golden Trees. And he did mention that 21 Pilots has numerous releases and then re-releases and then re-releases. So he said he's going to sprinkle those on us each week. Group Love with Tongue Tied, Foster the People with Don't Stop, Rise Against with Help Is on the Way, Lonely Island with Justin Timberlake, Mother Lover, Foo Fighters with These Days, Alex Clare with Too Close, and Fun, We Are Young. For some reason, I thought that song came out way later than it did. And then I got to this year, I was like, oh, it was that year. And then they all just disappeared. Some went to Bleachers, some did some solo stuff, and nobody's around. And then Ellen Sadler gives us her list faithfully every week. It gave us Titanium from David Guetta featuring Sia. Love that song. Long Hot Summer from Keith Urban. Judas and You and I by Lady Gaga. She said, don't ask her to pick just one Gaga single, and I would not do that to a human. Someone Like You from Adele. You Make Me Feel from Cobra Starship. And Knee Deep from Zac Brown Band and Jimmy Buffett. And Gregory, I actually was not very familiar with some of the tracks that your friend posted, but what did they give us?
Well, it was my good buddy Chirp, who I've mentioned a few times, and he didn't give tracks. There were 2 albums released this year that he said anything from. One of them was the Frank Turner album that year. If I Die by Bones Buried in England, some title like that. And then Against Me, White Crosses, which I'm glad he mentioned because it was not listed on Wikipedia. And I vaguely remember buying the CD around this time, but I completely skipped over it, which, as we'll find out later, will be. But he said anything on those. This is my least favorite Frank Turner album this year. Other enough he didn't mention the Decembers, because I think this album was his favorite Decembers album, also my least favorite Decembers album. So, but yeah, no, thank you to Chirp for that. But I have a bone to pick with you about this, Dan.
What happened?
Well, you'd mentioned even with the 6-word comments, you replied 6 times to comments. 5 of those were 3 words or less.
I'm a man who believes in the economy of words.
In fact, the only one was your second response after your 1-word response to Justin of excellent, when he mentioned the stuff about all the sprinkled in re-releases. You then responded with the full paragraph.
I did intentionally do it once, and then it got exhausting. 6 words is a lot to come up with.
6 words are easy.
That's you. Where were your 6-word comments, Joseph?
That's a good point. I did respond to Amanda with 6 words.
Now, as we dive into this year, Gregory, what debuts did you have for us?
This was an interesting / not interesting year for debuts. Civil Wars, Runner Runner, BDI. Travis Barker's solo album came out this year, although to call it a solo album is hard. He plays the drums on every track, but like it's so many people on it. Kendrick Lamar had an album released this year before he broke out.
Yeah.
Gazelle Twin, Wolfgang, Total Control, Kimbra. Her debut album was this year. She's the vocal on the Somebody You Used to Know, and that album was fantastic. Hold on, I just scrolled down. Dev, Ed Sheeran, Das Racis, their one and only album was this year. Seth MacFarlane released his first album this year, which I thought was much earlier than this, but it was this year. Scotty McCree from American Idol. His
We got another
album was
American
this
Idol
year.
legend.
Yeah. Wayne Static's solo debut album was this year. Cher Lloyd's debut album. Mac Miller's debut album. Pusha T, who'd been around forever at this point, but his solo debut was this year. Gambino, who got mentioned, I think last week or 2 weeks ago because of the mixtapes, but the actual album came out this year. And I listed them because I thought the debut album was only like a Bandcamp release. So I have Candy Hearts Down. This is technically their second album, but they did have an album the year before. I'd thought was just a digital like Bandcamp release, but according to Discogs, there is an actual album and somehow 8 people own it. But I've known Meryl since 2004. I bought the Bandcamp album. I do not remember this coming out. Like it was just, I thought for sure it was just a digital release because I only have a copy of it on my phone. So, but yeah, those were the debuts I saw this year.
Yeah, there weren't a lot, surprisingly. But there were some pretty strong ones. So, Joseph, you want to kick us off with your list? Mine is really short this year. I don't know if I said that yet, but it's way shorter than I could have imagined.
Yeah, so as I mentioned last week, I'm going to do a quick Punk Goes check-in. This year, we once again saw 2 releases from Punk Goes. The first one was Punk Goes X, which was a collection of punk covers of songs featured in the Winter X Games from that year, which is like the dumbest category that you could possibly come up with to make a cover album of. But there were some bangers on it. Breathe Carolina had a cover of Down. Hit the Lights did their cover of More Than a Feeling by Boston for this album, which is really good. And then We the Kings did a cover of Caught Up in You, which I like better than the original. And then in their mainline releases, there's also Punk Goes Pop Volume 4. It's kind of down between this one and Volume 5 of my favorite albums. But Tonight Alive did a cover of Little Lion Man, which was massive at the time, but I like this version better. I don't know if Amanda can hear me because that's a no-no in our house. All-Star Weekend did a cover of Yeah, 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 or Yeah 3X, depending on who's writing it. And then Go Radio did a cover of Rolling in the Deep, which is really good. Not quite as good as Adele's, of course, but they did their cover. Also, quick shout out. I didn't pick it as my song of the year because I thought it would just be a wash for all of the 2010s if I put it on there. But Rebecca Black's Friday was released.
That made my list.
I have it on my short list, but I did not pick it as a song of the year because it would just run through every other song, right? For the 2010s, it'd be a runaway. I was convinced that this song had come out earlier than that. For some reason, I could picture singing this song freshman year of college, but that's not possible because I was a freshman in 08, 09, not 11. So
But you just made my list one song shorter.
Good, you're welcome. So on to my full list or my true list. Panic at the Disco had another album out this year. A lot of well-known Panic songs off this one. The Ballad of Mona Lisa, Ready to Go. But my favorite off this album is The Calendar, which I think fewer people know, but it's really fantastic. Adele's kind of breakthrough album. I know there was 19 and there was one real like hit off it, but this album just blew up at this time. You just pick a song off this album and it was a smash hit. But right now I've got Rolling in the Deep and Someone Like You down, and I'm sure I'll come back to that in a little bit. Fast for the People, Pumped Up Kicks. Not particularly a huge fan of this song, but it was everywhere at this time. Like you couldn't go anywhere. For some reason, it's the darkest song ever, but like you just go to a store and it'd be playing for some reason. Yeah, this is what I want to listen to while I'm like going out doing errands, is school shootings and stuff, because that's fun. Lady Gaga, I love this album. There's a couple songs off this one I really like. Born This Way, and I'll get back to Gaga later for my short list. The Lonely Island had, I think, their second album this year. Most of The Lonely Island I could take or leave, but Jack Sparrow off this album is fantastic, featuring Michael Bolton. And he's a powerhouse, of course. We Came as Romans, one of my favorite post-hardcore bands. I think this was their second or third album. Favorite song off this one is Understanding What We've Grown to Be. If you like anything with a little bit of screaming as like an emphasis on music, but it's mostly singing and melodic, you like We Came as Romans, and check out that song. Not a lot of people know who they are. Ed Sheeran, even though he'd been around for like 1,000 years writing songs for other people, as Gregory mentioned, this was his debut, and the A-Team also just kind of took off and blew up this year. Another song I don't necessarily care for, along with Gautier, somebody that I used to know, but you couldn't go anywhere without hearing those songs, so I included them. One Direction, same sort of thing. They blew up this year because they released What Makes You Beautiful this year, which got massive, but slightly lesser known for those of us from the Northeast. Their video for Gotta Be You, which was their second single off this album, was filmed at Plattsburgh.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so they had just released What Makes You Beautiful, and they had been in the States looking for a place to film, because apparently there's only green in New York State and nowhere else in the world. And there was like half the campus who knew who they were at that point. They hadn't quite gotten huge, and it was like, oh, these musicians are coming to film at Plattsburgh, and everyone's like, there's like a small crowd, and the rest was like, who the fuck are these people? Like, why are they even here? And then they just got massive. So that was interesting. Childish Gambino, Gregory mentioned. My favorite off this one's Bonfire, probably. Kelly Clarkson, she had a smash hit this year as well with Stronger, What Doesn't Kill You. I'm so nasally today. The Airborne Toxic Event, this is my favorite of their albums. Changing is my favorite song from Airborne Toxic Event, and that came out this year.
Great song.
Love it. Falling in Reverse, The Drug in Me Is You, is probably my favorite Falling in Reverse, but it's probably one of only three that I could name you off the top of my head. And then kind of rounding out my short list is Gavin DeGraw, Not Over You. That was another song that I felt like was everywhere in 2011, and for good reason. But my short list for this year, or I guess my top songs for this year, Foo Fighters had an album this year. Overall, I wasn't big on this specific album, but the song Rope is up there in like one of my favorite Foo Fighters songs of all time. I'm trying to decide right now which one's my song of the year. Okay, so my runner-up this year, Lady Gaga, Edge of Glory. This is my favorite Lady Gaga song in her discography, probably. I absolutely love this song, but taking home my favorite song, or the top choice for this year, is Adele, Set Fire to the Rain.
Oh my.
Did you say why?
No, I said, oh my, great song.
Oh, it's like, because it's the best song on that album. I know someone like you did better commercially, but Set Fire to the Rain is much better.
That song is an absolute banger. I actually blast that like when I'm cleaning and stuff. I absolutely love it. So excellent choice. Gregory, what do you got?
Well, before I get into my list, I think Joe wants to tell people to do something.
Yeah, everyone go like, comment, and subscribe. I was like 99% sure it wasn't said already today, and I didn't want to say it because I always just miss it.
I was waiting for you simply because I watched it, but then I know you had nasal brain, so I was just gonna let it go and leave it in the comments.
Well, people have to read the comments to get it in the comments. If they're watching the video, they're going to hear it. But also, before I get started, I had a bone to pick with you already, but I have a bone to pick with your daughter. Because she said we don't have cool backgrounds.
We don't.
Look at those great shelves Joe has. And Teddy is really the biggest part of our show here up on my bookshelf next to my walrus too. And because it's not good enough, I also added Allie's Steve disc, a disc I got as a wedding favor from my dear friends Allie and Steve. I have another one, but we broke it using it as an ultimate disc. And then Joe got me this awesome disc golf disc that's a Stegosaurus and definitely underweight and not good for disc golf, but look how cool it is.
I will have to show her and see where her judgment lies now.
Yeah. Here she wants to come on My Friends to talk Harry Potter, but she's insulting our backgrounds.
Yeah, we just aren't impressive enough, apparently.
I guess not. So, all right. But
I will definitely let her know that the effort was there, though, to enhance the scenery.
The whole reason Amanda and I switched sides of the office was so that I could be in front of the bookshelves when I was filming for either the podcast or class.
Well, Zoe wants more, damn it.
I mean, we don't have green screens. We don't have the money for green screens for a thing we're doing for fun. So
if I take her allowance away and she wants to pay for better scenery, that might help.
Yes.
Awesome. I'm going to let her know.
Well, and I think if she's paying for it, what we should do is get different independent artists to make his backgrounds, say every couple months.
Sounds perfect. She makes more money than I do at this point, so we're not.
Yeah, when you tell her this, she's gonna be mad at you.
What else is new?
That's fair. All right, so getting back to music, I went into a little bit of Joe mode, so I've got a couple covers on my list this year.
Yeah, covers.
The first one being Adele's cover of Love Song, which that is a song that I've never heard a cover I didn't like. That's my favorite track off that album is the Love Song cover. No offense to Adele. She's beautiful voice, wonderful songwriter. This is just one of those nearly perfect tracks. And also, I knew you guys were going to pick most everything else off the album, so I went with the cover. Leaky Lee, I Follow Rivers, my favorite off this album. Off that Travis Barker album, Just Chill, which features Beanie Siegel, Bun B, and Kobe, not Kobe Bryant, although the Kobe Bryant rap album is not bad if you can hear a couple of tracks of that unreleased album.
That's the one with, what's that, Drop the Rain song?
Yeah.
Or Let It Rain, yeah.
Also, Beat Goes On off that album, which features Cypress Hill. Those are back-to-back tracks on the album, but is not the 2-track run for this year. Tyler, the Creator, Goblin, She, featuring Frank Ocean, and then Window, which basically is an Odd Future posse track. It's got Domo Genesis, who for, I think, a while in these early Odd Future days was my favorite member of Odd Future, but Frank Ocean's already also on this one. Haji Beats and Mike G. Honestly, there's probably a reason Frank Ocean's the only other breakout star in that list, but I really like Domo Genesis' voice. Matthew Good, another solo album this year. What if I can't see the stars, Mildred, and How It Goes are my two favorites off that. How It Goes might be one of my favorite solo Matthew Good songs completely. And not just for Chirp, but Frank Turner off that album this year. If I Ever Stray is just a great song and one he still plays live pretty regularly. Somebody that I used to know has been mentioned a lot. I'm in the same boat as everyone else. Like, it was just there, not a song I absolutely loved. The video was amusing in a time where was anyone watching music videos? I don't know. But also, like, that's the first time I heard Kimbra, and she's amazing. So that's why it's got to be on there. Off that Pusha T album, he has Trouble on My Mind with Chance the Rapper. Gambino, we've been talking about it. Freaks and Geeks is one of my favorites off that. I think Freaks and Geeks is the second most played off that album on Spotify. The first being Bonfire, which Joe mentioned. My two track run of that this year though is going to be Let Her Home, which is only like a minute and a half, but I love that track. And then Heartbeat follows it, which is just a great track as well. Black Keys.
You have now taken all my Gambinos.
Oh, I left one that you'd mentioned last week specifically because you'd mentioned it last week. So that's on you, sir. The Black Keys album this year, Lonely Boy, which was the first single off that album and one of their bigger hits, just a great track in general, and also Little Like Submarines I really liked off that. That December's album I don't care too much for, but it does have some really great tracks. Don't Carry It All, Rocks in the Box, and Down by the Water, which is just one of those cases where it's one of my favorite tracks off my least favorite album of theirs. Candy Hearts, Sleepy Kisses, and When I'm With You are probably my two favorite tracks off that album. The next Candy Hearts album is one I like a little bit better. Tim Kasher of both Cursive and The Good Life. He had released his first solo album the year before. I completely missed it. Apparently, The Good Life and Cursive can get on Wikipedia, but not his solo stuff. But he re-released that album with a second album. It was called Monogamy. And so the two-part album is Monogamy, Bigamy, and more tracks from Monogamy. So I included it in this year because we make our own rules up. So No Harmony, I'm Afraid I'm Gonna Die Here, and Strays. Just really three great tracks off those double albums. And then why it's really good, reminded me Against Me album came out this year, is White Crosses, I Was a Teenage Anarchist, and Because of the Shame is my 3-track run. Those are the 3 tracks that open the album. So White Crosses is also my favorite like opening track of the year. Just a great album that I didn't love originally, but after a couple plays, I just fell in love with this track. I've seen him Against Me a few times since this came out. Also an important album because this is the first album before Laura Jane comes out and transitions. So this is like the next one, which is also a phenomenal album. That's when Laura Jane has done all the press because she was very open about it. And it was also just a great moment in the press that covered her because we weren't far from some other big names coming out and transitioning where the press kind of ridiculed them. So it was nice to see her on the cover of Rolling Stone and doing just this wonderful piece. And then she did her AOL series with a bunch of other transitioning people and their stories. And then I think the biggest part about that was hearing her bandmates, high school friends, and even her mother talk about her. And she's never referred to by her dead name, and she's never referred to as he. Mm-hmm. Like stories from before she transitioned are always he and always Laura. And that for me was a huge thing because this is the first time the press is covering someone fairly with this. And I just think everything she did between these two albums was amazing. She's amazing. I got the what's up head nod from her one time. We Chirp and I definitely wanted to go talk to her, but we were like, no, we're going to be cool. And as soon as we said it, she gave us the head nod. So she knew, but also if you're sitting outside of a small venue, smoking a cigarette, you kind of expect people to come up to you a little bit. So yeah, I just think she's just so cool. My short list, Cameo Lover off that Kimber album is just so good. That's, I think, the song I fell in love with her was when someone played that for me and they're like, oh, you're going to love this. Outside from Childish Gambino, I honestly kind of just picked one of the tracks off the album. But I do love that track. Also off that Frank Turner album, I Still Believe, just wonderful. Ache With Me off that Against Me album, but my track of the year is Spanish Moss off that Against Me album. And you could flip those two. It wouldn't make too much difference, but I went with the fact that Spanish Moss is a little more fun to sing along to at a live show. Great but Ache With Me is more like emotionally impactful, but I went with the sing along.
Nothing wrong with that. So I have rather short list, and a lot of these are actually fun ones that remind me of certain people. So we got 5 O'Clock from T-Pain, which was kind of Roy's go-to dance song when we hang out, which is just always fun. Anybody knows Roy knows that he likes to dance occasionally.
More than occasionally.
Yes. All Black Everything from Lupe Fiasco. Colby Calais, who I'm a big fan of. She had All of You, Brighter Than the Sun, and then Favorite Song with Common, which I really like. This was a weird year for me because I actually got down with some country, which is not very common for me.
Is this the year you met Ellen then?
Actually, coincidentally, I did not. 2 years later. And I think that this is where my country stuff started. So I actually got some of the references she would make. Angel Eyes from Love and Theft. Anywhere With You from Jake Owens. There's 2 country songs. I think I had like 2 total until now. The Voice started, and Stitch by Stitch from Javier Colon, who was just an amazingly, incredibly talented musician who came out of that show. And his creative process kind of delayed any future work from him. That song was absolutely amazing. And then we had Ass Back Home and The Fighter coming from Gym Class Heroes. Ryan Tedder was on the one track. And then let me get rid of Bonfire because it was said quite often. Broken Hearted from Carmen, who did a lot of covers prior to having their own tracks, and they're incredibly talented. I found out about them when they did the Super Bass cover, and my buddy Ben Covert showed me, and I was just blown away by it. What year do you have Call Me Maybe from Carly Rae coming out, Greg?
I think it might be next year.
All right, so I had it as a release this year.
The single, I think, was the end of this year, but you know me, I'm going by
November.
albums.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the single was November. So I wanted to beat Greg to it for when we get to it next year.
I'll make sure to leave it off my list so it can be yours next year, Gregory.
Yeah, I pretty much wanted to be able to say it once and then just.
Oh, I'm going to talk about it anyway. I'm going to talk about that whole album because the whole fucking album's amazing. So,
a 3 Luke Bryan track, Country Girl, Drunk on You, and I Don't Want This Night to End. And honestly, I didn't even enjoy them that much. They just seemed to come on at parties and we were hanging out with bonfires, just having fun. And they remind me of a really fun summer. Ed Sheeran gave us Drunk, Lego House, and the A-Team, and his songwriting ability is really on display, as well as just what he can do with an acoustic guitar. I mean, the dude's just hella talented. Everybody Talks from Neon Trees, Faster from Matt Nathanson, more country. God Gave Me You and Honeybee from Blake Shelton. What was I smoking that year? I know what I was smoking that year, but Homeboy and Springsteen from Eric Church. Jason Derulo gave us It Girl. And Little Talks from Of Monsters and Men. Love on Top and Run the World Girls from Beyonce. The song None of Us Could Escape, Moves Like Jagger from Maroon 5 with Christina Aguilera. Mr. Know-It-All from Kelly Clarkson, which is just an absolute banger that I love. Rack City from Tyga, which reminds me of my friend Jess and JJ just hanging out, vibing that song for no reason. Keep Your Eyes Open and Angel at My Door from Need to Breathe. And if you have not checked out the band Need to Breathe, they have numerous albums and they're incredibly talented, some great music. And Wanted from Hunter Hayes. Welcome to My Hood from DJ Khaled. And then Firefly and Kids from Gambino. I had to get a couple in there. And then, as I said last week, my song of the year was Tightrope from Janelle Monáe. I was not fibbing. I was not lying. That's legit my song of the year. And I listened to it about 40 times since then. So Tightrope was mine. It was an easy choice. And yeah, I absolutely just adore that song. So that was a wrap. And if you notice, that was clearly my shortest list. And you guys also had shorter lists as well. But I think that there's going to be more stuff coming up that lends itself to the more obscure stuff that we're into. And I think that's going to be a fun time as well. Now,
you mentioned a couple things that list that got my mind thinking. Well, I guess I made the joke about you meeting Ellen that year, but you also mentioned Roy dancing and all this Gambino talk. Is 2011 the year we met you, Dan?
I think it is actually.
Because I think I moved in with Roy in 2012, and it was like not long before I moved into him that I met you.
That's when me and JJ made our trips to Messina. So yes, that is the year you met me actually.
Yeah, so all of that, and in the house I was living before Roy, we threw a bad prom party that year, and you'll be shocked to know that some of us, including the Dilcox boys, may have drank an awful lot that night. And someone else who was there showed up to pick up someone that ended up crashing there that night. And when she walked in, because the front door is wide open, we are dancing, and we are dancing in my makeshift dance floor that used to be my living room that was now empty except for my turntable. And we are dancing to Gambino. And that was a regular at that time. Late night, Joe and I put on Gambino.
You know what that is when I met you? Because JJ was living with me at the time, and we discovered Gambino on Jimmy Fallon of all things one night. And that was it. And then we took our trip to Messina, and then you and I had our infamous McDonald's search at, I don't even know what time it was, when we just walked into Roy's room and said, give us your keys, and he obliged. And
yeah, because even though I lived like 4 blocks from Roy at the time, I did not want to go home. I slept on the couch. I think you and I slept on the same couch, like sitting up, because
we did.
JJ was passed out on the bigger couch.
We were throwing chicken nuggets into his mouth while he was laying down. Yes.
Yeah. We are not necessarily good people.
That was our first night of bonding, and it was incredible.
Yeah. There was an epic dart game that I think got interrupted one night by Roy dancing. So,
and I recall the one at the bar that got interrupted because we were talking Orlando Magic and Seattle Supersonics, and somebody just had to make us shoot darts at a damn board.
Yes.
Yeah,
was that you, Joe, that had to make the dart to the board?
It was Joe.
I like darts. What can I say?
We liked basketball and Sean Kemp jerseys and just wanted to talk.
Yeah. So yeah, folks, 2011 is the origin of where this podcast began, really.
And to everybody listening, Joseph has been compiling these nice Spotify playlists for us, and I've almost updated all the responses as well as my choices. I know Joseph's up there. Gregory, I think you're working on it too.
Yeah, mine are up there, and since Chirp gave whole albums, and I just happen to have songs in those albums, those are the ones off those albums. I didn't add whole albums to you guys, but if you want to listen to whole White Stripes or Frank Turner albums, none of us here are going to stop you.
Do it up. And let's keep those comments coming. And I have no idea how to get through the algorithm until they fully update their meta system. I really hope the logo is just Meta World Peace's face, but I don't think we're going to get that. So I'll continue to tag away, but tags don't count as comments. So I'm going to have fun limericks or whatever in there and just try to get it going. But thank you to everybody who found it and who participated again this week. We're already in talks of things to do when we're out of, we have 10 episodes left before we're out of into our year in review, and then we're diving into some other fun stuff. So don't forget to catch Gregory and I on No Coast Defenders, which was back this week on Spotify and YouTube. We talked Venom, we talked Shang-Chi, and then we talked what's upcoming, the Disney Plus mess, and just everything else in between.
Yeah, we talked a lot of Hawkeye, including like the most important reading recommendation we gave so far in this podcast, and even the most important one for the upcoming Hawkeye series, which is, of course, Matt Fraction's Hawkeye run. So I'll give it again now.
So tune in regularly. Also, Gregory's got some fun chats. I just watched one. Was her name Amy?
Yes, Amy, who will be here in Colorado in December to celebrate mine and Joe's birthday, since we're going to combine them this year.
That's excellent. He did My Friends Like Cool Shit segment with her about her journey through the MCU, and it was quite fascinating to watch her take on it, given her experience, and really great interview. So definitely check that out on Greg's YouTube channel.
Yeah. Also, we haven't talked mental health in a couple weeks, and as Dan has mentioned a few times, we're heading into that season of it. And I just happen to see, I think the fact that we're learning so much about ADHD and signs and symptoms of ADHD is amazing. We're going through that. And I saw one today, and it was just about why, even though men and women get ADD at about the same rate, boys are often diagnosed younger and more often. And it's because of how it processes like in the brain. And I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, I know exactly who this is talking about right now. And so I'd sent it to them, and we were talking, and they mentioned that they also think their husband is undiagnosed. And it was just kind of like a reminder that, yes, we are coming far away in our understanding of mental health, but we are not there. So remember, if you need help, reach out, because this stuff is real. It can definitely weigh on you. As I've read more and more about it, I'm realizing so much of my behavior has been controlled with how I learned to cope with mine.
Yeah.
And just what I haven't learned to cope with because I didn't realize I should have been trying to figure out how to cope with it. So
Yeah. And it's a good reminder. Just, you know yourself better than anybody. Don't try to push it down. Don't ignore it. Tackle it head on, as tough as it might be. And if you need help, you got folks there. And if you just need to shoot a quick message or whatever, we're all easily accessible. I appreciate, there have been a few of you who have reached out. I'm not going to name names, just props to you for taking that step and taking steps to self-care. And I'm happy to help you with resources. So thank you for being a part of this process. I mean, who knew that we'd be almost 30 episodes in and just rolling. So tune in. There's a lot of projects. I know that, we often share a lot of different stuff that we're doing, but we all do it for the one or two people who care. So tune in, take care of yourself, take care of each other. It's a rough patch of the year. If you need a quick pick me up or a smile, I will gladly gift you a taco from Taco Bell just to make you smile. So I know that goes a long way. Gents, thank you again. And I look forward to adventuring through 2012 with you.
all right, see you next week, Dan.
Until we meet again.